So
Okay.
everybody who's here joining us this evening, thank you very much for doing so. I have a wonderful guest that I'm going to be speaking to this evening. So I'm really excited about bringing him and his knowledge and information to you. So for everybody who is here, who has not heard of this young man before, please, Bill, tell us, who is Bill Maeda and what do you do in your day-to-day life?
Okay, thank you, Chris. I really I appreciate you having me on your show. I'm very honored. Up until recently, I'm just a guy. I'm I'm a 52-year-old father of two. I live in Honolulu, Hawaii. I have a training company, a personal training business. We're called Fit Pro Hawaii, and that's been in operation. Oh gosh, about 20 years now. Before that, I was living on the mainland. I'm from Hawaii. My wife and I were living in Los Angeles from about 95 to about 2000. We spent 5 years there. I wasn't there for the Hollywood industry. I was actually there to live in Venice, California, and to work at Gold's Gym Venice and the powerhouse they had back down there. So but anyway, I picked up a bunch of knowledge down there in the 5 years I was there. Moved back and I started Fit Pro Hawaii in Honolulu, and we've just been running that game. And like I said, I'm a normal guy. I specialize not in special forces or MMA or any. It looks like some of the stuff I put up there is directed towards that. And I'll tell you why in a moment, a little more in detail, but I actually specialize in getting normal people that consider themselves even below, like they have pretty low opinions of themselves, or they used to be in shape and now they've really let themselves go. And almost all of the people I work with fall into that category. There are people who are more suited in Honolulu for elite athletes and this and that, but a lot of the methods I come up with, a lot of my training philosophy has to do with people being able to enter some kind of a fitness program easily according to their personality and their traits, and then being able to, more importantly, sustain that. I guess that's a different question, but going back to who I am, I'm just a guy. I'm a normal. I like, some of the comments that these people leave. They're, at the very least, they're humbling. I'm just so flattered by some of these comments that people leave, but it's important that they know I lose my keys every morning. My house is a mess. This is the only place I can do my podcast, because if you saw the rest of this, you would know I'm just like everybody else. So I'm just a guy, and I'm just trying to I got on TikTok. It was a challenge from my daughter during the lockdown. We were both at home. I challenged her to start a cupcake business, which she did. And she challenged me to start just some kind of a social media channel. I started on YouTube, and then TikTok became a thing. At least she made me aware of it. And so here I am.
There you go. And you know what? I love that answer, because sometimes people ask me, about things that I've done and whatever, and I say to them, I'm just a guy, man. I'm just a guy doing some stuff. I happen to be a surgeon, and I happen to be able to interact with some people when they're sick, but I'm just a guy, And so I really, really like that answer,
Yeah, and that's cool. Yeah,
so
that's where I am. So
tell me, Bill, you were training. So you've had Fit Pro Hawaii for about 20 years. And then before that, you were in Los Angeles for 5 years. But it sounds like even before that, like you've been involved with fitness for more than that. So tell me, how did your fitness journey begin?
Okay. I would have to say, well, oftentimes, and that question comes up on comments like, what inspired me to get going with this whole thing? And I'd have to say, I was a pretty apathetic kid. Like, even from a very young age, I grew up in a nice neighborhood, in a nice home. I went to a nice private school. I got driven. I was treated right all the time, but there was something in me, I don't know, that always wanted to be a soldier. I was, from the time I can remembering, I was into guns and wrestling and anything that had to do with guns and wrestling or fighting, or yet I wasn't a violent kid. I wasn't angry. I was never abused. I was never bullied. I just was very intrigued with all of those things. And I decided at an early age that I was going to, well, okay, let's back up a little. I saw my first Bruce Lee movie when I was about, I don't know, maybe 10 or so. And there was a scene where he's doing some nunchaku. And not only was that nunchaku thing just I had never seen, but as he was moving those sticks, I was watching all these muscles and everything just jumping all over the place. And I didn't know what to watch, whether it's the sticks or, it was just this feast. I was like, oh God, I was blown away by that. And that night I found a length of just some chain that we had, and had no sticks on it, but I just started doing nunchaku with a chain and beat the hell out of my hands. But it was I started just doing this nunchaku chain. And then, so I'd have to say Bruce Lee, like most guys of my generation who are into this, I don't think any of us, he affected all of us in some way. Yet the problem I had with Bruce Lee was I knew that he was one of those small, wiry kind of guys. And I was already a big, meaty kid, and trying to even move like he did, that just didn't work out well for me. So later on, guys like Van Damme, and then, I'm from the 80s, right? That's when I was a teenager. So luckily in the movies, we had guys like Van Damme, Stallone, and of course, Schwarzenegger. Van Damme's athleticism, for the amount of bulk or the muscle he carried, I didn't know that you could be that muscular and have the ability that he had. Just the movements, his kicks were just beautiful. Mm-hmm. And honestly, he's a beautiful guy. I mean, I got a wife and kids, but man, when I saw him, I'm like, that is just, he was just too much. And then Stallone. I've always liked the characters that Stallone has played, especially as Rocky, that way he was a killer, but that guy that he was out of the ring, I just felt that character combined with that ability, that was kind of a role model for me. Was, I know it's just a movie, and then when I saw First Blood and all of these, he's just this kind of guy, like, don't mess with me, I'm just cool. But then when you mess with him, oh shit, I'm sorry, oh boy. So, and then Schwarzenegger, of course, he was just, just the muscle bellies on him. To this day, I haven't seen a better bodybuilder, in my opinion, than Schwarzenegger. So that's where it began. I'd say around 10 when I first saw Bruce Lee, and I started with push-ups and sit-ups. I did a bunch push-ups, sit-ups, and then in Hawaii, we had in the 1970s, what they call, the boogie boards, the body surfing boards, those foam boards, those just came out, and every kid on the island who could get one got one, and they all went out to the beach. And during the 70s, the beaches were just flooded with boogie boards. I was the only kid that I got electrical tape, and I taped about a 6x6 inch square on the middle of my boogie board. I put it up against my bed, and I held the bottom part with my foot, and that became like a makiwara or a speed bag for me. And I punched that boogie board until it folded in half. I never rode that thing. And to this day, I suck in the water. Like, people ask me if I surf, I don't. Because that was how I used my first surfboard. So that Bruce Lee thing got me, it started with Bruce. And then as the 80s movie stars came up, they were quite inspirational. But what actually got me into what got me deep into it was, by the time I'm watching all these movie star guys, I also was turning into a 15, 16-year-old. And that's when I started getting into more trouble with, just being a teenager. Like I said, I haven't hurt a soul in my life. I've never hit or struck anyone. I've defended myself, but I've never, even that, I haven't had to really hurt anyone. So I wasn't coming from that place, but I was very confused. I was also very insecure. I couldn't talk to girls. I even had trouble talking to other guys. I didn't have a group that I fit into. I was kind of that guy at school who wore the camouflage jacket, and I was just, yeah, I had trouble fitting in. And then I got to a point where my behavior and my grades required that I leave. I went to a school called Punahou. Barack Obama went there. I'm sure a lot of people listening would know that, but he did better than I did. But I had to leave for a year to go to kind of like a special school for kids like me. And that school turned out to be the best thing in the world for me. Number one, where the private school I was at, I started there from kindergarten. And I treated it like a prison. So I had figured like I was a charter member. I was like, you don't mess with me in this school. I don't even care if you're older or what. I was like one of the heavies at the school. And like I said, I never bullied anyone because if you saw this private school, you see it's very cushy. But I went to this other school and I instantly became kind of the bitch. The way I was dressed was private school. And as soon as I entered the classroom, man, the guys were leaning on me. And these were guys that at my old school, I would have figured they would have, based on how they look, they wouldn't have done that. But I was kind of had a feeling I shouldn't push back on these guys. And I'm glad I didn't. They would have pounded me out. What I know now about, we all became friends in the end. But for a while, I was an outcast in this school because I was very private school. My hair had gel and I had these, polo shirts and, yeah. And at this school, you don't dress like that. So I quickly learned to kind of adapt my attire. I also learned that during lunchtime, they were surfers. This was a very surfer and kind of a lot of local kids. A lot of them were kind of tough. And this school didn't have weightlifting facilities like my private schools did. And I didn't start lifting weights until I got kicked out of my old school and went to this new school where it literally was like a prison that I didn't start gaining respect until I went down to this old shed that had some rusty weights and literally the floor was dirt. And at lunchtime, I would just go there by myself and I'd pump up because I was so nervous and I was so insecure that at lunchtime I could just vent that out. And some of these kids started coming down and watching me, and they were kind of impressed. And I ended up building myself up kind of back then. Dolph Lundgren was all the thing, right? And so my thing was to try and get like him. And I every time I went in there, I trained my lats because I remember he had lats. I just couldn't get over his lats. So pull-ups and rows and pull-ups and rows and pull-ups, and that just became my obsession. And I actually got big. And within a few months, I got a lot of respect in the school, not because of, but they liked watching me do that. So, and then I started teaching some of these guys. And by the end of even halfway through the year, we're all friends now. And I realized, wow, that's a pretty powerful thing. And it's also, I enjoyed it. It allowed me to get out this aggression. I didn't know what all this stuff was. It was just me. In an earlier time, I believe I would have been maybe the guy they would send over the hill to go mess with the other guy. But since we live in a modern time, we don't need guys like that. Like a lot of the people we call criminals and these guys that are highly motivated and they're definitely open to risk. In another time, they would have been our soldiers. They would have been our heroes. Tons of the guys that are in the lockups right now, you and I both know that those guys, they were just born in a time that's not appropriate for every society. Every human population needs a few of these guys. And I believe that I was kind of wired to be one of them. But as I got older, and we can discuss this more, I'm learning that maybe it was better I didn't go that route. But so anyway, real quick, I know I'm getting kind of long on this answer, but I wanted to go in the military after that because I was figuring the best combination of what I discovered, not just, okay, getting muscles is cool and every now and then a girl will talk to me, but actually getting fit and feeling, I guess, empowered enough to want to start defending or you know, like in the military. And at the time, you know, special forces was, even to this day, it's every young man's, at least they think of it a few times. And I was in line. I wanted to go to special forces. So I started training myself. I started sleep depriving myself, training out in the rain, and just doing the stuff that Rangers and SEALs, whatever I could read from Gung Ho magazine. And we didn't have internet at the time. So I would buy these overpriced magazines on special forces and try to just study. Turns out I actually applied. I tried to enlist in the Army and the Marines. I was ineligible because when I was in high school, I played football and I had what's called a Bristol procedure on my right shoulder. And you know all about that. And because they put 2 stainless steel screws in my shoulder at the time in 1990, the military had very strict standards on this kind of thing. They called it a prosthetic. So they said, not only would they not take me then, I am permanently ineligible for all military service. So that was kind of a little disappointing for me. I was like, because I had spent from the time I was 15 up until maybe 18 or 19 getting ready for that. And then didn't turn out. No. Turns out, you know, I heard that, you know, Chris Kyle, the sniper.
Yep.
He had the same Bristol procedure done to him, but I guess he was a little more motivated or resourceful because he just went to a different recruiting office and lied. But in Honolulu, we have one office and everyone knows everyone. So because I considered maybe trying to get at the other guys, but the Marines and the Army guys, they had lunch with each other. So I couldn't, So anyway, that's how I got started. And then from there, after being rejected by the military, I was like, well, I still enjoy this training thing and people still are interested in having me show them what I know. So I became a trainer after that. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. I love that. So, you know, in the content that you post,
yes.
what I like about the content, there's a number of things I like, but one of the things that I like is that you use non-traditional exercise apparatuses. For example, clubs, right? So let's talk about clubs for a second. And so when did you first learn about clubs? Who introduced that tool to you, and why do you use that tool in your training?
You know, it's interesting now that those clubs have really people are really interested in the clubs. I started, the kettlebell, I was always, from the moment I saw a kettlebell, which was in early 2000s, I was intrigued by that and I wanted to learn and try and feel what that thing was. But in Hawaii, we didn't really get kettlebells actually shipped here until probably 2004, 2006, 2007 is when I first saw our first one. Literally, to ship a 53 or 24 kilo kettlebell from Dragon Door, who was like the only guys at the time that were selling them, was a bell would cost maybe $150, and then to ship it would cost $200. So it was rough getting bells here. So I got my first kettlebells back in 2007 or 8. And then I'm a grip guy. I'm obsessed with grip. I've always thought, because to me, if you don't have a grip, anything that's upstairs from that is just, just useless. So I've always been, and because I'm a martial artist, all the training I do, here's a general answer. Everything that I do personally for my training has to in some way make me or somebody else a better fighter. And I'll explain that later, because you don't have to be a fighter, because I don't fight and I'm not fighting anybody, but those attributes are helpful. Anyway, going back to your club question, I realized that the kettlebell revealed to me that the grip I thought I had from just deadlifting and whatever I was doing with weights, pull-ups, that grip was not even close to what I needed. It was not a dynamic. In fact, because the loading curve would not change, it was pretty static. Whereas on a kettlebell or a club, as that thing drops and straightens out with the rest of your limb, you get this impulse loading into your grip. And so I started calling, I don't know the true terminology, but I called one a horizontal grip and the other one a vertical grip, meaning like a kettle, anything you, like a suitcase, if the handle was across your hand, like as if you're holding a suitcase or a kettlebell, that's what I called a horizontal grip. And if I was holding onto a club, like in a kind of just posted here, or if I'm climbing a rope, the challenge to the grip is similar. It's just the direction is different. I'm pulling down on the rope and the club is pulling up out of my hand. But I realized that my grip, in my vertical grip relative to my horizontal, was weak. It was not there, both in rope climbing and with swinging these implements. And so that's how I kind of got in about a year or so after I started doing the kettlebells. The clubs, that whole ballistics thing in 2005 to 2010 was like kettlebells and clubs. They were kind of, the clubs followed the kettlebells, but didn't get anywhere the type of exposure. I mean, there's a little, if you were really into kettlebells, then you found clubs, but they didn't really spread out. And there's a lot of reasons that I understand now for that. But I actually I tried them for about a year. I did the basic exercises that, by the way, I got to give some credit to a guy named Scott Sonnen, or Coach Scott Sonnen. A lot of people listening would know who he is. I believe his company is called RMAX International. That's where I got my clubs from originally. And a lot of my initial material that I learned and the techniques I learned were Scott Sonnen's stuff. So just props to him. And but I didn't feel like, because I couldn't take those sets, like a kettlebell snatch or clean and jerk or anything like that, you can take those to literally to the death. And back then, that's if I didn't end in a puddle of blood, then the thing was supplementary, but not something I would really spend a lot of time on. And it's only until recently, while I've been doing this channel, those clubs sat dormant in my office since about 2008. I mean, literally, I learned some basic techniques. And what I'm doing on TikTok and on YouTube now were basically, there's two types of clubs. There's the Indian clubs that are smaller, right? And then there's those club bells. And I learned some Indian club techniques from Brett Jones and some other guys from the RKC. And I started adapting the Indian club techniques with heavier 5-pound clubs. And then, so a lot of the things you're seeing on TikTok, those are kind of adaptations of kind of two styles. Whereas Indian clubs, the heels are touching and the feet are turned out. So you're very narrow stanced. I take a wide stance with the heavy clubs. That allows me to weight shift side to side. And now I can use more of a frontal plane or the muscles that would move me in the frontal plane, like my obliques and my lats. And it's one of the most powerful cyclical frontal plane movements that you can do. And but what you're seeing there is kind of a recent hybrid of two techniques that I used to know a while ago. But I literally I just put them in the sink the other night to wash the dust off of them. You can't see it in the videos, but, and then so one of them went flying into the grass. I did a blooper video where I lost control and just stuck into the grass, and I had to wash the grass off of that. But yeah, they're not, up until recently, they weren't a big part of my program, but the flow pattern that I'm discovering now is why they're appearing more. Because and I'll give you a little philosophy on that thing a little bit more, but that's how I kind of got started. Was it was just an adjunct to the kettlebell, but that it also filled in that other grip challenge, that deadlifting and kettlebell, they're both similar directional challenges to the grip. Yes. And this one where something is trying to pull up or pull down was missing. So that's another reason why I kind of like those.
That's very cool, and that just shows me the level of thought that goes into what you're doing, right? Because most people wouldn't even consider that sort of directional component to the grip, right? Like they just figure you can hold on something tight, right? And if you can lift it, and then that's good. But you know, you're taking into account a whole different plane of motion, and I think that's it just speaks to the level of thought that you put into what you're doing, which,
well,
you know, I think is an amazing thing.
oh, thank you, Chris. You know, I appreciate that, but you know, I should also give more credit to. It's not like I'm a really forward-thinking individual. I'm rather, if you ask my wife, I'm very impulsive and in the moment. These conclusions that I draw about various training modalities has more to do with where I fail. I also had a midlife thing. I'm 52 now, so when I turned 50, I thought let's try go back into jiu-jitsu again. I used to train with Halson Gracie when he first moved to Honolulu in 1992 or 91, many years ago. So I thought, let's try jiu-jitsu again. And it was wonderful. I mean, I enjoyed it more, you know, re-entering at 50 than when I was in my 20s. But my grip, there were times where I could pull these guys down to me, but if they shrugged up and the gi got pulled this way or that way, I was losing them. And I was like, oh, yeah. So that's kind of where these things come from, is if I notice there's a deficiency in that's why I like the martial arts so much, because the martial arts kind of frame for me what I need to work on based on where I lose or where I fail. So that's what those things kind of give me the ideas is, yeah. So, well, thank you anyway.
No problem, man. And even that, one of the things that I did sort of early on in my medical training, and prior to that, I was a teacher, and I remember I was a high school teacher, and I remember saying to the thought process that we were taught was that no question is a bad question. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is an opportunity to learn, right? And in medicine, that kind of gets beaten out of you, that whole way of thinking. But you know, now that I'm sort of post-medical training, I realize as an entrepreneur, as a business person, and just in life, that failure is that it's a tool, it's a learning opportunity, and failure is what tells you, like, if you're not pushing yourself, if you don't fail, you're not pushing yourself. You're like, because it just means that you're working within your zone of comfort, man, and there's no growth there. So failure is, we have to look at failure differently and say, yeah, that it's an opportunity to learn. The only downside is if you fail and you don't listen to the message, right? Like, you need to fail, say, okay, yeah, yeah, you got me. I get it. That's what I need to focus on. Do that, come back better, stronger, more prepared, right? That's that's what I think. Exactly. Failure is an amazing tool.
It is. You know, I liken my learning process to you, like, you know what a Roomba is, right?
Yes.
That thing that, as far as I know, the current technology in that thing is based on deductive failure. So it kind of just starts to bounce in here and there, and it starts keeping track of every failure it makes in patterns or cross references to fails to eventually somehow cover your whole room.
Yes.
And that's kind of how I learned. Like, bonk, 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 bonk. And then eventually I start getting, okay, I see patterns, and then I miss, I'm sure, a lot of them too. But yeah, I totally agree. I encourage my daughters. I have a teenager. She's obsessed with good grades, and more than I am. And she'll sometimes come home and say, "Daddy, I got a B." I'm all, oh gosh, and Daddy's grade, Daddy's day, that was an A. But I don't tell her that. I say, "Oh, too bad. Well, do you know what you got wrong?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you know how to correct that now?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then good. Go and get an A next time. But we won't worry about the B. As long as, like you said, you know what she did wrong, and it's that you actually learned probably better than the people that got the A. And as soon as they got the A, they dumped all the knowledge. And then, whereas the people that had to kind of go back and actually relearn it 10 years later, when that question comes up for the job interview, they remember the guy that got the A didn't. So it doesn't always turn out that way, but yeah, sometimes.
No, it's true. But I remember reading somewhere or seeing somewhere in an interview where they were talking about entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs. And they were saying that most very successful entrepreneurs, yes, you have people like Steve Jobs, you have Elon Musk, but there are lots of people who are very, very successful entrepreneurs that were not A students in school. They were B students, for exactly the reason that you mentioned. Because the A people, they were smart, they didn't really have to work at it. And so they were successful, and then they just went with it. Whereas the people who were B students, it's like they didn't have success, they had some failures, they had to figure stuff out, they had to work through stuff. And then those same skills that they learned doing that in school transferred to when they became entrepreneurs, because it's like, shit, this is not working. What the hell is going on? Oh, I got to figure that out. And that's what allowed them to be successful, right? Because they figured shit out and carried on.
And Chris, is funny that when my daughter, I have two daughters, when the teenager now, and I have an 8-year-old, but the first thing I taught them, because I didn't really do well in school myself, and because I think a lot of it is because I didn't understand a principle that you just brought up. I taught my first one, and now my second. The only thing that matters to me, you can choose to be whatever you want. You can get the grades that you want. They can be great, they can be not great. But the only thing I care about is that you learn. I taught her 3 words, and I've refined this ever since, but perseverance, tenacity, and determination. They're in some way synonymous with each other, but each one has a slight. I made sure that she before she even could pronounce those words, she knew those words. Mm-hmm. And because I said, you can have a bad education, no education. You can come from another country, not speak the language, but if you have that in you, that not just drive. A lot of people have drive, but they quit easy. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have a lower gear, someone that can just kind of just churn to take the next step and the next, and they don't stop. And when it gets rough, they slow down, but they keep going. That to me, you can't fail. Yes. You cannot fail. They can take your arms and legs away from you. If you have that, it's everything. So yeah, I agree.
There you go. No, I like that. So some of the let's change gears here for a second. Sure. Because I want to segue from what you were just talking about with these principles that you mentioned with your daughter. Let's talk about training now. Yes. And what are your overall, and I'm sure there are lots of different things, but if you could sort of distill it down, what are your overall training principles when it comes to training, right? And okay. There's yourself, and then also the clientele that you service.
Yeah, and that's where there are similarities, and then there's differences. My training philosophy in earlier times was basically very similar to what is like a CrossFit type of. It was, since I was training for the military, I didn't really care about how muscular I got, how defined I got. There was a point when I was just out of high school, I wanted to weigh 200 pounds. That was important. I just had to get up to 200, which I did. It was kind of a fluffy 200, but yeah, after I got there, I kind of stopped caring about that. And my thing was just being able to, on any given day and at any given time, being able to basically produce or to respond with, I used to call it respond with violence. Mm-hmm. Now, and it didn't mean like just, but like if somebody attacked you or jumped you, or you just had to be ready. No warm-ups, no, oh, here, let me get my foam roller out before we do that. No, you just had to go. Mm-hmm. And you had to be able to go without sleep, and you had to go hungry, and just everything the military would do to you. And I did that for probably the first 40 something years of my life. It was every day was a beat down. And on the days you felt beat down, that was a good day to practice training beat down, because, you know, life's going to do that to you. And you can't just say, hey, I'm beat down. I can't. So I used to just grind. And, it, you know, in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, where I was obviously younger, I recall just when I look back on it, I had a lot of orthopedic pain. Like my lower back was always sore. I had a hyperlordose. I was just, and anterior pelvic tilt, you know, that big bubble, Venice in the 90s, everyone was walking around with the MC Hammer pants and their ass sticking or their butt sticking backwards and chest out, right? The big oversized sweatshirt. So that was training from age, say, 15 up until age 40. And then I got cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer at age 42, so about 10 years ago. It was colon cancer. It was serious. I was working, I was holding a kicking shield for one of my clients, and he's throwing front kicks, and they weren't killers, but every one of these kicks was just kind of sore. And then I started feeling really kind of tired. My wife took me to the ER, and it turns out I was internally bleeding from basically there was a cancerous ulcer in my colon that had ruptured. So I was then I had to go in for surgery, and they cut it out. And so after that, nothing was the same. I had chemotherapy for about a year. And after that, I looked the same. I kind of looked the same from before. I even during cancer, during chemo, I held about 208 pounds. I had all my muscle was still around, but I was weak. I've learned now, and I'm sure you know this, Chris, that you can see a guy that looks like the Hulk, but if that guy has something going on, he can be weaker than his grandmother and still hold what appears to be a healthy, formidable structure to him. But coming out of my chemo, and when I started, every time I would try to train when I'm on chemo, you want to throw up, because I had a pump attached to me when I wasn't in the hospital. This pump during the day was always shooting chemo into me. I was just saturated for months with this stuff. So after that, I learned that everything I did was difficult. It would take much longer to recover from it. And the wear and tear on my joints seemed to be disproportionate to what I was doing. I mean, I was literally my joint surfaces were degrading. And to this day, they're damaged from that period of time where I thought I was still the same, but I wasn't. So I think I have some orthopedic issues, especially in the knees and the feet, that came from some neuropathy that I got from the chemo. But now my personal training, my training for myself, and most of my clients are about my age, give or take 5 years or 10 years. So we're all kind of 40 to 60-ish. I've learned that this is a more appropriate thing for people our age, and none of us are elite athletes, but daily, consistent, sub-maximal workouts that are enjoyable have worked very well for me and for my clients. And this was kind of also pieced together during the lockdown that we had, because I was telling people I started the channel as a challenge for my daughter. We were both locked up here, and we thought, okay, let's do something fun. But also one of my clients, I was training people online, and he and some others, they were doing well in the sessions, but no one was training outside on their own, even though I'd give them their workout and whatever. And he said that what would be helpful to him would be for me to post just somewhere, either to him directly or online, literally what my workout was when I was at home, because he said it would be kind of fun to see what I do. And he also was calling me out. He said, man, I want to make sure you're not just talking smack and having me and you're at home. And literally he busted me, because I guarantee you the worst of my clients was still working out more than I was during that time. Okay. Like the laziest, most whatever, they're drinking, they're still were getting more, because I was just coincidentally before the lockdown, I was kind of in a state of depression for at least a couple of years, because my health, my joints, everything was just, I was weaker than I'm training harder or trying to train, and everything was sore, chronic fatigue. My guts were a mess, very foggy, brain fog, tired, I was a mess. And the lockdown just allowed me to kind of just get my bearings back. I had a lot of time to think. I started with 10 minutes. I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. 10 minutes. I'll put it on YouTube. And then in return, you give me 10 minutes and you don't have to put it on YouTube. I was telling the client that. And so I did that. And he then started kind of following. He said, every time you put one of those up, I promise you. And he did. But I started getting comments from just people on YouTube that happened to find the videos. Because I started doing this for about a week or two, and then they started finding them. And some of the comments they left were really very nice and encouraging. And they kind of said, hey man, I wouldn't mind if I'm getting something out of this. You want to? So I said, okay, let's do this for a month. And then a month turned into 90 days. And then here we are, just over a year. And I put something on TikTok yesterday that I thought it would be appropriate for me to take a few days off. I just wanted to see if I could do this for a year. I did it for, I think, a year and a few days. But at the same time, I didn't want that to be the message. I'm not necessarily advocating, or I do not recommend working out every single day for a year. That is not something that I please, if your listeners and viewers get anything from, it's a good thing to do, but not for 365 days in a row. Yeah, that's another reason, because I was getting to the point where, as long as there would be certain areas that be sore, a little bit under recovered, but as long as I could work around those areas and those workouts were meaningful and strong, and I wasn't just going through the motions to throw up a video, then I would continue. But I've literally hit the point where my right knee is not letting me get away with things. My left ankle and Achilles is telling me enough. My left wrist is saying no mas. So at this point, if I were to keep putting videos up there, I'd be kind of lying to all of you guys, because I'd just be like posing. And unless I can bring real energy to the videos, that's another, I have to be honest. By the time you see clubs and other things starting to come out, that means my heavy compounds, my kettlebell and my barbell things, I'm starting to flag. I'm starting to I'm drop back. But that's not a dig against the clubs. The clubs are wonderful for rehabbing and prehabbing while you're letting other areas. Like, I could go out every day and do clubs. Yeah. I'm sure these areas would still heal, but I thought a better message to give would be, I'm going to stop this. Yeah, anybody, if they try to, could find something else to do, but I didn't want that to be the point. So I thought, hey, I'm going to cap it, and I'm going to answer everybody's questions for the next few days, sort of like what we're doing here. So
well,
anyway, that's, yeah, the difference. So I guess to sum it up, it would be frequent, easy, sustainable. And for young people listening to that probably doesn't resonate very well, but I have found that even with my younger clients, if I give them, because that's relative to ability. So what might be easy for a 20 or 30-year-old client would bury me or some other of my older clients, but that guy is still feeling, and it has to be kind of easy, because willpower, as we know, is finite. It is not an eternal resource. And there's a certain point where you're going to have a bad day and you're going to get home or whatever, and that's it. You don't have anything. And now you've got this killer workout in front of you that's going to, and you know it's going to hurt. And a part of you is afraid you're going to get injured because you didn't sleep well, because you're worried about this thing from the night before. But if every one of your workouts, you know, is going to treat you well, it's going to welcome you in easily. It's going to just guide you through something. And I end up getting pretty intense in that 10 to 15, 20 minutes, but I'm never sore the next day. And there's no trepidation about going into the next one. Because yeah, it's exciting to do these balls to the walls workouts, but there's some days that is not happening. And then I used to be the kind of guy that if I can't do the balls to the wall, there's no point in working out, and I'd skip that workout. And then I'd feel bad about myself the next day, and I'd be like, you're a loser, man. And then something would come up, and now I feel not motivated, and now I'm off track. So for someone like me, I kind of have a little ADD. I need to be on it every day. Otherwise, I'm off it every day. And for others, if they, yeah, that might not be the best, but that's what I'm doing right now.
I relate to that a lot, and because I too really enjoy like the balls to the wall, hard workouts. But you know, you and I are the same age, and I'm not the age that I was previously. The recovery takes longer. I've had way more operations in between the intervening period of time on my multiple joints, and it's like, yeah, what's the point? I'm not an elite athlete. I think, you know, although I'm not in the same shape you are, I think when I look at myself and what I can do, I go, for a 51-year-old guy, like I'm probably near the top of the group, and so, you know, I can be okay with that. Like I'm not going to compete in the CrossFit Games. Why am I killing myself, right? And I remember it makes me think. One of the things that you said there makes me think of a conversation I listened to Faraz Sahabi, who, so you know who that is. And
yeah,
people who don't know, Faraz Sahabi is, he was George St. Pierre's coach, and he coaches a number of MMA athletes out of TriStar in Montreal. But he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about how they were talking about workout intensity. And Faraz Sahabi was saying he never ever wants his athletes to work out until they're sore. And yes. Joe was like, get out of here. What are you talking about? And Faraz Sahabi, he is a philosophy major and he is a thinker, right? And he said, no,
right.
never want them to be sore. And Joe asked him to explain. He said, simple. The people who work out until they're sore, as you said, they're sore. The next day they're sore. They're like, oh my God, I can't go so hard. I don't want to work out. They skip workouts here and there. So the people who are working out submaximal, if you look at if you plot over time, work on the left-hand side of the graph, time over the right, over the x-axis, and you plot the amount of work that people who are submaximal, but all the time, you plot the amount of work that they do over a period of a year versus the people who are killing it, you know, said the people who work out all the time submaximally do way more work, right? And so
they do, yeah.
If you're looking at the body and its ability to adapt to specific applied demands, the body will adapt more to the people who are doing more work, right? And
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you know, you can kill yourself, go ahead, knock yourself out. But if the main goal is to make ourselves, as you say, be ever ready, right? And be able to turn on at an instant and respond to anything, you want the person who has done the most work, right? And you want the body that has been exposed to the maximal amount of whatever type of demand it is that you're applying to it. So yes, the submaximal, and this is something that I've had to learn as I get older. And it's just like, you know, at the facility that I own, with one of our philosophies is, you know, to leave your ego at the door. I've had to learn to do that because it's like, shit, I wanted to be the guy, okay, when I'm training, I want to put the most weight on the bar. I want to squat the heaviest. I want to be doing the most of everything. And I want everybody to know that I'm that guy, right? But as I've gotten older, I've had to go, okay, like what, am I trying to hurt myself? Like, what am I trying to do? Like, why I'm strong enough, whatever, just, I want, really, what I want to be able to do is, I'm 51 now, when I'm 81, I want to be able to still work out. I want to be able to do pull-ups. I want to be able to do squat. That's what I want, right? So what's going to get me there is, and it sure as hell is not me trying to deadlift 600 pounds. Like,
yeah,
it's not going to be that. So
absolutely.
Doing that.
Yeah. And just doubling back to that Faraz Zahabi interview with Joe Rogan, that was the only other person I had heard speak so well of the topic, of course, was Pavel Tsatsouline. And he also had, I think, on a similar, either Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan podcast. Pavel was big in my training philosophies in the early 2000s, when I really started going into the kettlebell and more of those modalities of training. Yeah, he was also into submaximal and greasing the groove, which was doing many submaximal sets rather than a few all-out sets, and keeping those sets, if necessarily, like doing one pull-up every time. Put a pull-up bar in your kitchen or in your hallway, and every time you walk under that bar, you do one pull-up. And over the course of the day, you've done 35 to 40 pull-ups. Yeah, and yet you've recovered adequately. Your nervous system isn't getting fried, and it's just those philosophies I'm big on now. So yeah,
I like that quite a bit. So when you are speaking with your clientele now, what are the benefits that let me rephrase that. So what the style of exercise that you demonstrate for them, okay? What are the health benefits, or how is it that you promote that style of exercise to them? What are the benefits that you use to do that?
You know, the way I try to present the training, most of these people have no background in weight training and definitely haven't worked with trainers or coaches or anything, or they have a background in sports, but that was a long time ago in high school or college. And they're equally nervous about re-entering and, what it's going to be like. And they've seen these shows like The Biggest Loser, where the guy's getting yelled at and, come on, give me 4 more and all this other stuff. And you can just see that they come in and they're just tense and they're nervous. And one of the first things I want them to understand is they like to call me coach or whatever, but I'm more of a teacher. I consider myself more like a college, like a tutor. I tell them, first thing you got to take off the table right now is, you're not giving me anything. I'm not going to ask you to give me 3 more. And because I don't get anything out of you doing 3 more of anything. And also I need them to understand that I encourage their questions, and I encourage them to ask the same stupid idiot question 8 times in a row if they have to. I've had learning disabilities. I've worked with them, and I've learned how to reverse engineer problems so that people like me will understand. And I'm totally open to re-explaining things over and over again, because I've learned some of my clients, they're they're intelligent people, but when people are nervous, they don't learn. I mean, you can look them right in the eye. They look like they're looking right at you, but they still going, oh my God, I hope this guy doesn't kill me. And they're not really focused. So that's why I tell them we need to, if for 3 different sessions, you need to re-ask the same question, you need to do that. Also, I encourage them to question everything and anything I'm giving them. Everything. I need to be able to explain what the benefits of that activity are. And also, I explain to them that I'm going to teach them. We're first going to go if you go to a fancy clothing store, there's a personal shopper that helps you try on things. And between you and that person, you'll decide which things fit and look the best. That's the way I like to choose exercises. In the old days, it was, I don't give a damn. Freaking, who cares if you like dumbbell kickbacks for your floppy triceps? We're going to be doing squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, and kettlebell swings. And yeah, that's just the way it's going to be. And we're going to end with Turkish get-ups. Now I've learned that with the average housewife or mom or, semi-retired guy, that they're not into that. I've found ways that we can find things that accomplish what the squat, the deadlift, all, but I've we have versions of all of these things now that are gentler, they fit. Instead of doing, everybody in the old days had to get ass to the grass in the squat and full vertical lockout with the bicep behind the ear and the overhead press. And that kind of messed a few people up, trying to work them into those standards. And I've been indoctrinated very strongly into those standards. I've since learned natural range of motion. So if on a given day, a new client, this is their shoulder press, then we're going to go here. And we're going to just, I don't no longer force them to, come on, get that scapula back and goddamn retract your shoulders. And that we work with what we've got, because the main thing is I want them to develop the habit of making time for fitness. What they actually do doesn't matter, because if they haven't developed the habit of making time for their fitness, then anything you give them is not going to work. So I tell them, I give them some simple moves. It's usually like, if we do push-ups, we're doing elbow bends more than push-ups. And their plank is more important than how deep they go in the push-up. If they're doing squats, we'll do quarter squats, but the hip hinge has to be good. The legs out to this, everything has to be nice. And then, because if you're gentle with your body and you don't force it into places it doesn't want to go, a quarter squat will evolve into a third squat, which will evolve into a half squat without forcing this. There's two things I'm big on: not forcing the CNS. We don't want the central nervous system to get blown out. And also we want to work within the hormonal profile of a given person. And I don't nerve test people, and I don't have them bring me, blood panels of what their test and estrogen and estradiol. I don't go there. But I just know that at a certain age, I certainly feel, everyone thinks I've got testosterone up the wazoo. I definitely have less testosterone. That's why I peeled back my workouts. When I had higher testosterone, I could work out harder and I could recover faster. Apparently, when you have chemotherapy, this might be a little TMI, but apparently it kills all the cells everywhere. Some of them are in your balls, and that affects testosterone output. And I came out feeling somewhat emasculated from that whole thing. That's why what you guys see on these videos, it's pretty glorious, but that literally is probably the only really good movement of that workout. I know it's easy for people to think, God, this guy looks like he does this for 2 hours a day. No, it takes me about 10 to 20 minutes to work up to the sets that I then put on TikTok or on YouTube. And that's literally, and you'll notice those sets rarely go beyond 10. They're usually 4 to 6 reps. And there's all sub-maximal. Even the stuff where it looks like I'm pushing hard, I only pushed hard once on that weight, and then I went in. So it's all, and that, see, if I've learned that if we make this really user-friendly, very, like, almost, they should feel, I told them, you should feel like you quit every set that you did your first few workouts. Every time you put the weight down, you should feel like a quitter, meaning you should feel like a little bit or quite a bit dissatisfied, and like a little bit like you just cheated yourself. You have, it's a paradigm shift you're gonna have to get used to. Is being, because I said, here's the thing. It's sort of like being on a date and almost getting to what they call third base. I don't know if young people are gonna understand that analogy, but almost getting some action, right? But then you don't, and then you go home and you're like, fuck, you're like frustrated. But then the girl lets you on another date and you're like, oh, cool. And you go into that next date with more enthusiasm. So that's how I want them. I want them to leave the workout feeling like, damn, I could have done more.
Yes,
you will tomorrow. I'm like, because that keeps them. Now I'm not saying, come on, man, dude, I'm so sore. I'm like, just stretch out, use your Theragun and get out there. That was the old days. Now they're just like, okay, so I have some guys say, so can I finish my workout today? I'm all funny. Yeah, go for it. And that's what they do. And it's hard for a lot of these guys it should feel to everyone a little too easy and a little underdone, because honestly, that propels them into the next day and the next day. I can beat these guys down and they feel like heroes the first week or two, and then adherence drops off massively. So I'd rather a slower start and a longer burn. And that's kind of how I approach it right now.
Okay. So the training, the stuff that you demonstrate on TikTok and on YouTube, is who is the ideal person for that, right? Like, are you just putting that up there just as a demonstration, like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm working out every day, I'm going to demonstrate some of the stuff that I do, and that's it? Or are you thinking, hey, you know what, I'm doing this, I want some people to see this and hopefully be able to use it and incorporate it into their own training programs? So I guess that's the first question. And then if so, who do you see as being able to use what you do?
Okay, the videos that I'm posting, it's kind of changed over the course of a year. This was a very selfish kind of compartmentalized endeavor from just between me and my clients. I'm really, I guess, very shocked at the response that I got from the YouTube community, and really humbled. Truly just, wow, I didn't think that people would respond to this, because the workouts I'm doing, even up until recently, were the things that I very selfishly felt were the best for me on that given day. And there's a component of, well, let's see what people might want to would be interesting for them to see, but that could not be the primary criterion in which I would select my exercise. I would oftentimes not overlap. Like if I did a strong sagittal plane, double snatches with kettlebells all on this plane, then the next day was going to, and that's a wide stance, I might kind of do something a little more narrow stance, lungy, and with more of a transverse plane rotation of a kettlebell around my head. So one day I'm wide stance, strong sagittal plane, so I'm using adductors and glutes, and next day I'm more into the quads and I'm narrow stance. I got more of my feet under me, but I'm working a different plane. Some days there's a heavy push of a dumbbell or a barbell overhead. Other days the next day it's going to be a heavy pull with a weighted pull up. So there's a lot of reciprocal movements. Like one day is a heavy push day, next day is going to be a heavy pull day. One day is heavy sagittal day, next day is going to be heavy transverse or more transverse and frontal plane movements. And that's how I just keep trying to, I give the analogy of, I realized that myself and most of my clients and most people who train were built like a box. And it would be like if the north and south face of the box was made of Kevlar, because everyone in the front, like look at everyone's pecs, their abs, their quads, their biceps, they're huge. And you look in the back of them, they got traps, lats, glutes, hamstrings, calves, huge. But the side of the box, the east and the west side, those are made of cardboard. Those are like, there's not the side bends, the lateral raises, the side kicks, the leg abductions. Those are like weak. And to me, that was like having a box that had Kevlar front and cardboard sides. And so that's why literally when I'm spinning these objects and moving these clubs, I'm trying to get a joystick effect into the core, which I find is hard to get. There's a lot of lateral, there's a lot of twisting, there's a lot of anterior, there's a lot of flexion extension. But to get the joystick, like literally taking a person's head, holding their hips and going like this with them, and then going like this and having them resist those forces, those are kind of hard to simulate. I know the Bulgarian bags are really good for that, but the Bulgarian bags are most people don't even know what that is. And those are hard to get hold of and they're pricey, not like kettlebells and clubs are cheap. But yeah, these circumductive, that's kind of how I select these. So going back to those exercises, like some of them, there's this controversial side deadlift that I do, also a press where I twist about 90 degrees as I'm putting the weight overhead. I don't recommend people do those. I do them on occasion. And this is a philosophy that I apply to myself, but not to my clients. And I don't, once again, take it with a grain of salt, but I like to put myself in positions of compromise, like Jefferson curls, and basically the things that your knees far beyond the toes. Mm-hmm. And all those things that are supposed to break people, even barefoot, this and that, those are all, oftentimes those have a big part in my exercise selection as well. I like to choose the things that challenge where I'm weak.
Yes.
That's why I'm a big fan of, because I, like, you know, if you find a movement where you're weak, I mean, so like, it's amusing to you how weak and pathetic you are there. If you get a little bit better at that, the stuff you're already good at just comes up.
Yes.
And you know, you're not having to beat down those same joint surfaces and those tendons. You're spreading it out systemically elsewhere, but it arrives as a positive in that overhead press or that deadlift, you know, regardless. But you got to have more fun training something else. Like those clubs, I know that people, when they see a 10, 15, 20 pound club, they're thinking that's not a heavy weight. But that weight swinging into frontal plane is quite substantial. And it's really, it reinforces more linear pulling and pushing things quite well. So anyway, that's partially. And one other thing, I mentioned it, is there's a lot of questions. People say, do you only do compound movements? I don't really look, I guess, yes, I do. But the reason why it appears I'm heavily biased towards compound movements is I am more into deceleration, and like the eccentric portion of any given movement is much more important to me than the concentric. I've learned if I master decelerating and absorbing that load systemically, instead of when the kettlebell comes down on me, if that can go through my system rather than just land on this shoulder and on this collarbone, everything is a systemic lift. I'm trying to absorb the kinetic energy through my system and then recycle it back into the implement, but systemically. People think like the clubs look like, they say I must have a rotator cuff from hell. I've got a weak rotator cuff. I can subluxate both my shoulders if I fall the wrong way. So it's not a matter of having strong rotator cuffs. It's systemic recruitment of basically the muscles in the blade or the lateral aspect of the body. Mm-hmm. So it's the full extension of it's mostly obliques and lats, and then a push off the opposite leg. That's what gets that club out to the side. It's not triceps extension and, you know, just trying to adduct. And yeah, it's the arm is just connecting my body to the club. So mm-hmm. That's another thing that's kind of important to me, is making sure I'm absorbing the shock of the exercise properly. And that's what allows longevity as well.
For sure. I really like that, both the weakness-based philosophy and then the eccentric loading and shock absorption, particularly the weakness-based. That's a big philosophy for us as well, and we are big proponents of that, because the way that I say it to people is like, you know, I'm from Ottawa and it's like winter half the year, and I said, if you walk outside, the ice doesn't ask your permission. Hey, Bill, do you mind if I make you slip here? Because like, you know, I haven't made anybody, it doesn't ask that, right? Like you slip on the ice, you find yourself in a compromised position. And ideally you want your body to have you want your body to say, you know what? I've been here before. We've trained this. This is how I respond, and this is how I get out of this. As opposed to, oh shit, what do I do now? I hope I don't fall, right? So Yeah, I like the awkward positions, the weakness based positions of compromise. And we are always saying to people, this is not necessarily a major component of your training, but you do want to do it, and you do it with caution, but you should allow yourself to get there, because as you said, you do want to spread the load, right? You want all aspects
Yes.
of the joint to see force, and you want the muscle to go through the full range of motion. You want it to have its full ability to lengthen and to contract. So it's important for us to um, expose people to those positions for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing, going back to your question about, who are these exercises for? They are basically, because I said they're kind of more selfishly selected for what I need on that given day. That's why you'll see certain repeats. I'm not trying to, every workout is going to be something different. And if you go back, you'll see several of this same thing. Sometimes I recently did an exercise that I did a few weeks ago with much heavier weight, and I tried it the other day, and yeah, it was not good.
Mhm.
But the thing that I also want for the older people listening to this is speed training, because going back to, that slip prevention, and a lot of that has to do, for older people, it's normal if you're a trainer, just for liability purpose, everything is slow.
Mhm.
Put them in the leg press machine, then rather than have them goblet squat with it, we're putting them in machines, just reinforcing them and giving them what I feel is a false sense of ability. And then they go out, they leave their gym, they slip on ice and they fall. And I kind of believe that. I read an article once that said, yoga and these movements these disciplines where you only move slowly, if that's all you do, that can literally kind of train your nervous system to just always move slowly. So because a lot of my lifts are slow, and the reason for that has a lot to do with orthopedic, as well as I like to just, once again, absorbing things properly. It takes me a while to get things absorbed. To counter that, I jump rope, I do I'll do jump squats and things that require more speed and reaction from the feet and the calves. Because when you're slipping, if the difference between the guy whose both legs just go whack and bam, and the guy that goes whoop, 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 but he still has his feet under him, is he's making these quick micro adjustments from the core that are just sort of like anti-lock brakes.
Yeah.
As the base is shifting, the feet are just staying underneath, and he's like, dude, okay, I'm all right. You'll see these guys, they'll be like, whoop, 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 but they're like, I meant to do that, and then they just keep going, right? But that's when, either being just young or naturally athletic, but as we get older, if we train those reflexes a little bit, and jumping rope, I know is harsh on those people, but we only jump a little.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just jump like small. Yeah. So speed training, and I guess what we might call plyometric type of exercises, those are scalable to older people. And we do try to implement that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Just as an aside, I don't know why I came up with this today. I was dreaming it. I think I was dreaming it last night. So I thought today would be smart. I thought I want to get in a little cardio. So my workout today was a 60-minute EMOM, okay? 5 regular skips, 5 double unders, 5 push-ups on the minute, 60 minutes. Thought that's doable. I can get the work done in 25 seconds, and I got 40 or 35 seconds to rest. Oh God, man. I got to set 40, and then I had to bail because the quality of my reps at that point, I was thinking, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm gonna hurt myself. I had to bail at 40, and so I think 40 is pretty good, but still I had to bail at 40, and I think I overcooked it a little bit, because I think my calves already, I can feel my calves now, so I know that tomorrow my calves are not going to be happy.
Well, there's a name for this law or this rule. I'm just going to call it the 90-10. There's also the 80-20. Like 80% of your income comes from 20% of your customer base.
Yes.
Well, 90% of your injuries come from that last 10% of your workout when you're, like everything is going great. That last 10% is where all the stuff shows up. And that's why when people are going, why are we quitting this? I just got the jump rope going and you're telling me to stop. I said, because you're not absorbing the shock. You're still jumping rope technically, but your shock absorption. Now, if I see your bangs hitting your face every time your whatever things are bouncing, because this is weird, but ladies who are kind of, big chested, they can jump rope. But this is a weird guideline that I give to them. I said, how you can cut, if I were to put something on you, you could jump and land in a way where it wouldn't go boing, boing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a point where ladies can jump rope and keep things tight and everything is kind of like, and then it gets to a point where you just see things start to bounce and crash. And that's when I tell them, by the way, I'm not looking at ladies' boobies all the time when they're doing jump rope, but that's just an analogy that people can relate to because it's a prominent structure that can bounce. Yep. So, but yeah, so as soon as the shock absorption, like you said, starts, and sounds like you bailed at a good point. Good thing you didn't do another 20 or so minutes. Yeah. But, yeah, as soon as shock absorption goes, that's when we move on to another set of the same thing. We can come right back to it, but we just want to be able to recover enough so that shock absorption is really good. And then, yeah, we'll come back and fight another day.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. Come back to fight another day.
That's it.
So, we talked a little bit about your personal workout, but I also want to touch on something else here with my next two questions. So, sure. Obviously, and you've said this, when you were younger, you were softer. Right now, damn, for a 52-year-old guy, you are ripped. You look fabulous, brother. You look fabulous. But my question here is dietary regimen. Okay. What is your dietary regimen? Because I'm sure lots of people would want to know. What do you eat? How do you eat? When do you eat?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that question. That is probably by far and away the most asked question on the comment section of these videos. It seems like I'm being elusive or like I'm like, I got some secret or something to hide, because what I've been struggling with is how to answer that question. And I'm glad that we have this little forum here that we can do this on, because Chris, literally, I mean, anybody that knows me from my wife on will tell you my diet is probably as random as the next person. I mean, and when I say that I've grown up in, I guess what I'm trying to say is this thing that people see, it's important to them to know that the overwhelming majority of what they're seeing is a gift from God. It's genetics. I'm not going to try and sell people on some magic shake or some kind of a diet program, because even if I was on some super regimented, strict diet it most likely wouldn't work on somebody else anyway, as you and I both know. Our body types are so different. But there's nothing I am holding back. I'm so, I guess, I don't know how to explain to people that I am doing nothing special. Let me try to, I do use a pack of exogenous ketones in the morning. I've been doing that for a while. It's sort of like the ketones just, I feel like they're a very good nootropic kind of brain booster. It's and it also helps me it does a few things. It stabilizes my blood sugar, also helps me to detoxify. I feel like I'm much cleaner when I have this, probably because I'm not eating as much food in the morning as well. But I don't intermittent fast. So this isn't to help me continue an intermittent fast. And I'm not keto. Please just because I'm using exogenous ketones, I am not ketogenic.
Okay.
My diet is actually quite high in carbohydrates, and not all good carbohydrates, bad carbohydrates too, or what are, you know, I eat bread, I eat pasta, white rice, brown rice, I eat candy bars, I eat ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it makes me kind of nervous saying that, because like I said, I did not expect for so many people to respond to my videos and to put as much, I guess, I don't know what you call it, just as much intention into what I'm doing, or attention onto what I'm. So I don't want to make people think that, oh, just eat whatever you want, you can be ripped.
Mm-hmm.
My message to everybody who's listening is, at this point in my life, I have this gift that I'm able to just eat anything I want, and somehow I look like this. And I'm not lying to anybody. I'm not doing hours of cardio and saying, oh, I only work out. I literally do zero. I haven't run in over a year. That used to be my primary cardio, was running. I can't jump rope now because I jacked up my left ankle. So I'm right now, the last, I don't know, whatever the last 3 weeks is going on, I haven't done long, slow LSD, none of that. Most of what I eat is carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And I drink lots of water. I don't keep myself dry. As you can see, I'm sipping constantly here. Being hydrated is extremely important to me. Mm-hmm. And this look that everyone sees now, it's as puzzling to me as well. Prior to having, and this is going to sound terrible because I don't want people saying, oh, I'm going to get cancer now. But I didn't have this appearance prior to cancer. If you look at the picture of the videos that I posted onto YouTube back in 2000, 12 years ago or so, I was much bigger. I was about 215, maybe 220 in those. And, but kind of a little smoother version of what I am now. Literally, when you get old, like I am, or like say we are, the collagen and the fat, the fat under your skin disappears. Mm-hmm. I might look more impressive, say, than I in older, but my performance is nowhere close to that 40-year-old guy. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I can bring it for a few minutes, like the best movements I can, but I'm not doing this all day long. Mm-hmm. And there's a limit to what I can do. I am definitely, people think, like there's comments like machine or beast. Okay, well, machine or beast for the duration of that video, which is about 8 to 12 seconds. And then I'm coming in and my wife is listening to me bitching about my daughter and my wife. If you ask them, they laugh at those remarks because they know the truth. I'm like anybody else. When I walk in the house, I'm getting up from the dinner table. It's like a 4-step process. And it's, once I get out there and I'm kind of in my mode, I can bring it, but I'm just like anybody else, yeah.
There you go, man. It's all good. We all are what we are, right? So I laugh when I hear you listen to that, or when I hear you say that, because my wife will say the same thing, right? Like after I came, so I was out in the backyard doing my workout, and I thought I had a good idea when I went out there, and then afterwards I'm sitting down, and she's looking at me sideways. And then I'm coming into the house and I'm like, oh my God, man, my calves are sore already. And she's like, I got to make sure I have a good clip to put on Instagram. But right. He's like, oh, okay. And now the complaining starts, right? Right.
And that's why I try to post at least on, just for people's entertainment, some of the times where the lift doesn't go well, like when the club bell goes flying off to the side, or I try to, and then I choke and I don't make the lift and anything. But Chris, I just wanted to, just doubling back to the diet thing, I don't want to just cop out with, I eat whatever I want, it's just genetics, because it is. But let me share with you and your audience the things that I do that I think are kind of aligned with what would be good. Mm-hmm. The number one thing that, because before I just say I can eat whatever I want, it's important for everyone to know that the majority of any given day at any given time, if you were to ask me, are you hungry or are you full? I would have to always say I am hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for a younger person or someone who's literally you're in your teens or your early 20s, you're in a growth, you haven't even hit your full adult size. I don't recommend walking around hungry all the time. Eat, take care of yourself, build your body up, give it. Even I would go as far as saying get a little fat while you're in the formative phases of your. If you have to choose between being a little overweight versus always hungry just to stay ripped and sexy while your body is still trying to develop its nervous system and its everything, I would say I would lean towards a little overweight, a little overnourished than undernourished. But by the time you're 52 like me, you pretty much have all the nourishment you need. And I tend to walk around kind of not, I'm definitely never full.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never go like, oh, like that. I just never, I can't even get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can give me a buffet, you're wasting money on a buffet with me
mm-hmm.
because I appreciate all that yummy stuff. And just 10 years ago, I could eat plates of stuff, but now I guess so. The foods I do eat, I guess after the ketones, and I'll make a cup of Whole Foods instant coffee, nothing special. And I pour some whipped cream in there.
Mm-hmm.
Whipped cream and a scoop of collagen powder. And that's more, I'm not trying to make bulletproof coffee. I just find that if I take the ketones and I have that coffee with some stuff in it, it just stabilizes my blood sugar. So, well, I guess maybe that is a bulletproof thing. But yeah, and then the first things I'll eat will be at the office, usually about 2 hours later, is raw almonds. I've been eating those for years. I mean, raw almonds all day long, and dried figs.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what I consume, most of my diet comes from Costco. I don't go to, my almonds come from Costco. My figs are from Costco. The collagen powders from Costco. Yeah, even my coffee can almost everything. I'm not a vegetarian,
mm-hmm.
yet I don't eat much chicken. I don't know why. I don't feel like chicken. I heard a podcast with Pavel recently. Turns out he doesn't like chicken either. He likes steak, and I do too. Mm-hmm. So steak, I'm not lucky like Joe Rogan. I can't quite get hold of elk yet, but I'm sure I'd enjoy that. I'm not a real dairy guy. I do enjoy ice cream. I have 2 kids, so when they have ice cream, I'll have ice cream with them. I'm not above eating pizza and tacos. Had a bunch of tacos last night mm-hmm. with some very greasy meat. Mm-hmm. But main thing is, okay, going back to the good stuff though. Yeah, I like and fresh fruit. I like to eat apples. Anything that's in season. In Hawaii, we got to just get what we can get, from the mainland. Right now, we got some real nice strawberries. So the other day, one day I'll eat like a heavy plate lunch. In Hawaii, we have these things called plate lunch. It's usually stuff like Spam and teriyaki meat and macaroni salad and 2 scoops of rice with brown gravy. And it's just what most people would not consider a good diet. And there are days where I'll go 4 hours or 6 hours and I'm ready for that. Mm-hmm. The other night I had a triple Whopper with cheese. I just wanted the triple Whopper. When I want that Whopper, I usually need it. Yeah. And I never regret it. And it never, yeah. And then the next day though, I'll eat broccoli and strawberries mm-hmm. like the whole day and have a few Brazil nuts. Costco just started selling Brazil nuts.
Okay.
And they're really good. If you like Brazil nuts, wonderful. Yeah. So a lot of nuts, this nutso butter that they also sell at Costco. Sound like a Costco commercial, but I'm emphasizing that so people know that most of what's working for me is you just go to Costco. It's nothing. Yeah. I'm not ordering from special places online. I'm not culturing things in jars and this and that and, ordering it from the Himalayas. It's all available at Costco. So.
Yeah. Well, there's two things I especially like about what you said. And so one is the hydration, because I found this, my wife and I have had this conversation a lot recently, right? Because as we get older, the water content in our cells decreases. And
sure.
What we need for hydration is significantly more than what we needed when we were younger. And I can easily tell throughout the day, oh, geez, when I've not had enough water, right? Because I can feel it start to get a headache on. I can feel myself starting to get dehydrated. So number one, I think the water is important. And so I really like that. And then the other thing that you said, which is quite important for people, is the feeling hungry, right? And what I've often said to people is this. I said, you know, if you want to tell when your body is in fat burning mode, right, you should have a little bit of hunger, a little bit of pang in your belly, right? Because that is telling you carbohydrates are done. I'm now into fat burning. So I said, if you want to get rid of fat, you should try to have that sensation, you know, frequently, right? And particularly in the evening, you know, if you eat early enough, you should, when you go to bed, you should have a little bit of that gnawing in your belly, right? And you should most definitely wake up with it, right?
So, those are important. And you know, I was really bad with that. My mom fed me very well. You know, I'm of Japanese ancestry, but when I was a kid, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and my parents spent some years living in the South, and they learned a lot of the Southern cooking. So when we moved back to Hawaii, my mom did a lot of Southern type of cooking. So we ate the way people in the South eat, and that's why the joke is why I'm kind of a little bigger for an Asian guy, because my mom fed me like, you know, a Southerner. And let's see. I got off the topic here. Oh shit! I'll have to return to that, Chris. I'm so sorry why I brought that up. Why did I bring that up?
Don't worry.
Oh shoot! Let me discuss something else. This is a little. I'll come back to that. Yeah. I have this thing where even when I was younger, I tend to, the chemotherapy. It gave me kind of a form of mild Alzheimer's, where what just happened, I'll have a really good thing, and then all of a sudden, as I start developing it, the actual topic I was developing it around slips me. So if that occurs again in the future, I'm sorry.
No, listen, man. I get that now, and I don't have the excuse of being.
And maybe it's just me being 52. Yeah. But why did I bring up that damn Southern thing? Oh, anyway, we'll double back to that if it recurs to me. But yeah, for all the listeners, if that occurs between me being 52 and just having a little bit of chemo brain, I guess yeah, we'll come back to that.
It's all good.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. But in a slightly related question, we'll finish up with this.
Sure.
You know, again, it comes back to your physique and how you look. I'm sure people ask you about testosterone in place.
Chris, can I stop you for one moment?
Yeah.
Can I stop you for one moment? Okay. I figured out what I was going to say. When I was younger, my mom fed me very well, and I never knew what hunger was. To me, I was literally taught that if you're feeling hungry, that's bad for you, and illness and bad things can come from that. So I was always being topped off. So as I got older and then out in the world by myself, that was just my habit. If I felt a smidgen of hunger, I would get Fat Burger or In-N-Out or whatever. And so now that I got kind of older, and I believe a lot of the reason why I had the cancer was kind of the way I ate, not just the things I ate, but the quantities that I put into myself. So that's why I started, Wim Hof and everybody else. And guys, I just want to touch really quickly on breathing, because where breathing saved me was not in helping me with anxiety. It did, but it helped me. I learned some basic breathing methods to deal with hunger. And that is the breathing. Once they kind of bridged that because I really was a slave to food. I could not go. I was just I'd get hangry all the time, and I'd lose it. And I thought that literally that I'd panic. And then I learned that, oh, you can go for hours or days without food. In fact, it's good to go hours or days without food. And once I made that paradigm shift, but I still get hungry, I still get a little edgy, but I breathe and I breathe. I literally like try to inhale nutrition and exhale what I call bullshit hunger. Yeah. It's just like, how can you be hungry, man? You have body fat. You ate very well the last 100,000 days.
Yes.
You certainly are going to be fine. And now that I know the science behind fasting or some of the science behind it, I now just relax and go, this feeling is hormetic.
Yes.
It is, it's a stressor that's good, even though it's autophagy is occurring in my body now.
Yes.
And, all these good things. So now that I know that good thing, like I associate healthy, clean, cleansing, anti-cancer type of situations, hormetic responses in my body occurring. To me now, hunger is a good thing.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to kind of give to you. It's not just, hey guys, if you want to get ripped, just try to be hungry all the time, because that's not good enough for most people. But if they understand the true benefits of hunger, combine that with a breathing method of their choice, then it kind of works out. It becomes more realistic. Okay, now, and my chemo brain remembers that you wanted to ask me something about TRT.
Yes.
So
well, just, TRT, steroids, because people, again, and it comes down to how you look, right? People go,
sure.
Oh shit, he's 52 and dude is ripped. Oh, gotta be some supplement. There gotta be something on there, right? So speak to that.
Okay. That is probably maybe in the beginning, it was a toss up. It was a tie between what's your diet and are you on TRT or are you on roids or what are they called? PEDs. I only recently learned what a PED was. So here's the thing. I've done some videos for TikTok and YouTube where, as honestly as I could, I explain to people I have never, ever used any of those substances. Literally, there's a lot of people that listen to these things, a lot of people on YouTube and TikTok. If any one of those people can come forth and say they have sold me something, they have seen me use something, even heard me talking about it, I'd love to see that person, because without making a huge deal out of it, I just am not interested. I smoked weed, took acid, tried every drug out there, recreational, but I don't know why. I just, for me, getting muscle that way, it just didn't appeal to me. I mean, I was impressed by the guys that had it, but I didn't want to look like that, for one thing. Like, because I would imagine that people that have really seen guys that are on roids and super physiological doses of TRT, they look a little different than I do. Now I try to choose the light, the sunlight in Hawaii makes anybody look ripped. Okay, I saw I'm sorry, anyone could stand on that slab at the right time and they're gonna look great. And I'm taking advantage of that, okay, because I live in Hawaii. So it's expensive here, but I got some good sunlight. So that's it. But if God himself could testify from, he would tell you, I just don't care. I also understand that's a loan, and I'm really spooked about hormones. What I'm going to tell you might just be old or obsolete, or it could be, I don't know. But my understanding is large doses of exogenous hormones will turn off, possibly, and not restore. Like when you stop taking these large doses of whatever you're taking, what they were replacing or supplementing, as far as I know, does not come back. So you'll look like the ultimate man for however long you're on that, however long that loan lasts. And then that all gets taken away and you pay an interest with big titties and just a giant nose and whatever that stuff. I'll be honest with you, I'm too scared. I'm a chicken. Even if I did care about that level of, whether younger or older now, I'm a chicken. I'm scared. I just wouldn't spend my money and my time and my efforts doing that, especially doing this channel. If I were to do that, I would definitely tell people, hey, I'm a 52-year-old guy. If you're interested on how TRT works in a guy like me, because I don't know how it would work for you, this is my channel and please watch. And I'd be very, very open about it. And if I ever decide, say, maybe I'm gonna do TRT or get some other thing down the line is better than that, and I feel like, man, I will certainly let everyone know. But for me to take anything now, even an over-the-counter, I don't know, this DHEA is no longer legal, but something like that, like a testosterone booster, I would still tell all of you guys, I'm using a testosterone booster that I got from Amazon. I mean, there's just nothing in me. And think of it, there's so much to lose by trying to represent, especially now that I've said as blatantly as I have that I'm natural. And then for someone to find out that I've lied, I'm nobody on the internet. I'm nobody. So there's zero gain for me at this or any point to lie. And even if I was making millions of dollars from sponsors and ads or whatever, I just wouldn't lie to y'all for that reason, because I would get busted. Everybody does, you know.
Everything lives on the internet forever, man. People.
It does. So, like I said, I'm fully open and honest on my channel on what I'm doing. And if I ever were to start doing it, I would say, hey guys, I'm going to change my deal a little bit. You guys might like this. I want to start using roids now. And that we'll change the channel. Well, I might just start a new channel. Let's build Fit Pro Hawaii now, build roid guy or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, I'll certainly always tell people what I'm doing. I promise not to lie. I promise not to lie. But yeah.
It's
okay.
So number one, that's the easiest way to live. But you know, the one thing I have to say is that for whatever reason, I feel the same as you. And you know, there's been different times in my life, you know, times when I was trying to play professional football where I wanted to be jacked, right? But I did not want to take any shortcuts to getting there. You know, partly out of fear, as you say, for what it's going to do to my body, but just also because it's like, I want it to be the work that I put in, right? I don't want it to be anything else. And it's even to the point like I've you know, I'm not really anybody on the internet either, but I've had a couple companies contact me about supplements and about this and promoting that, and I'm like, you know what? Thank you very much. I am honored and humbled in your interest for me to promote your product, but I'm not the guy, because I just don't use any of that stuff. I don't really see the point in it. I don't want to use it, and it's just it's just not for me. And I, you know, my cousin, my close cousin is an IFBB pro, and he promotes and uses a whole bunch of things. And I just, even still, you know, having that connection with somebody, it's just, it's not for me. And I just don't see the point myself. So,
yeah. But if I can give the listeners something, because the question is still, well, why is it, I guess apparently it looks to people like I'm on some kind of roids or something. And like I said, it is literally, I mean, whether people believe in God or not, it's a gift from God. And the way I was training before, if you go back a year or so, like on day one of I started my YouTube experiment of working out every day for 10 minutes. I started that on May 13th of 2020.
mm-hmm.
So on YouTube, on my channel, it's just called Day One Home Workout in Hawaii. And I think I was doing push-ups. But yeah, with this whole testosterone thing, if you look at me in those pictures, I had almost no training prior to that. I was like depressed. And here's how gifted I am with the genetics is I can go for months of no training and I still kind of look like this. Like a lot of people that saw that video, they said, hey, no fair, man. You started in shape because they don't know, and understandably, they don't know that a guy can genetically, I've had guys that look like NFL football players, 6'4", 3 something, just built. And yet we would do body weight squats and they would be puking, not literally, but, and it was just doing a push-up and trying to hold their body in a plank. And these weren't football players. They were normal guys that were built like football players, but they worked in offices, and you would think they could just crush you. And they, yeah. So what I tell people is, the primary reason why my workouts are short is so that I am not exceeding my body's ability to respond with testosterone. I think I only have literally, I can only traumatize 10 minutes worth of my body for me to produce enough testosterone and whatever else is required to do it the next day decently. Yeah. But also this, everything for a year, I know if I were to test my testosterone now, it would probably be close to like, you know, my daughter's levels. Okay. Because yeah, I just know that when my hormone levels, I was overtraining, even though I was trying to go easy. It's just, sorry, a year's worth of that, it's too much. So if there's anything I can say to guys that are not using TRT, yet are training really hard, trying to look ripped, wondering why is it the harder I train, the only thing I get in return is more soreness, but still don't have, my belly fat looks the same, my pecs don't look any better. I would suggest to them that they try to peel it back like a lot, but go for more frequent submaximal workouts. And the sets within those workouts are also submaximal, because once again, as we get older, we want to preserve our central nervous system's capacity for work, and also our endocrinology. So our hormones and our CNS, those are more important to me than how many reps my joints and my muscles can produce or absorb. Everything has to work within the confines of, can my nervous system recover by tomorrow or the next day? And can my hormonal profile support the recovery of what I did?
Yes.
And then, yeah. So if those are the parameters for where I limit my training, not can I do this to make a cool video for YouTube, you know? Although I have to admit, sometimes I get drawn into that. Some of those videos, I go, this is gonna look cool for YouTube. Yeah, and I'll do something, and sometimes I'll just blow it and it doesn't make it, and other times I'll put it up there, and yeah. But in general, for guys that just want to, whatever testosterone they have naturally, even if they're taking TRT, I would imagine, and they're not getting the results they thought, almost every time with guys around our age trying to get ripped, whether they're using TRT or not, in my opinion, they're all overtraining or under recovering. Yes. On the internet, there's a debate on those two words. Is it overtraining or under recovering? Yeah. Call it what they will. Probably both. Yeah. I guess the answer would be yes. But yeah, is to try and peel things back and see if they can compress what they're doing into a smaller work interval, and then chop the end off, and then go grab the rest of it the next day. So take a workout that you would normally do in one day and cut it in half and see how intensely you can get that first half done in 10 minutes or so. And the next day do the other half. And it's going to feel incomplete and unsatisfying. And you're going to feel like a pussy or whatever. But on the back end of that, things build up. I have gained more in the last year than I've ever gained in my life at as old as I've ever been. Yeah. Yeah. I guess the other quick answer is, can you gain muscle at 40, 50? I would say I did. Maybe about 3 pounds. My weight is about the same. I think I can't say. When I first started this, about 190. I think right now I'm about 195. Okay. So in a course of about a year, and I try not to include water weight. I would say that's a dry weight. So 190 to 1. So about 5 pounds in a year. And here's what, I don't expect to gain much more from this point on, because I am not supplementing with anything. I'm not increasing my calories that much more. I'm not really interested necessarily in gaining more weight. That's so I would imagine I'm at towards the limit of my genetic potential right now as we speak. So if I do happen to gain a little weight and it's not water, then I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
I'll be pleasantly surprised. But at this point, I would imagine I'd guess I'm probably close to top end at 195. Yeah.
Well, I used to want to be heavier, but now as I get older, I'm right now. I've been a little bit naughty with my diet the last month, so I kind of crept up to 215. But normally I'm in between 200 and 205, and to be honest, I think as I get older, I'm not interested in being super jacked. I do want to look good, right? But I want to be, as you said, ever ready, and I want to be strong, right? And you don't necessarily need to be super huge to be strong. So
not at all.
I want to trade off the size because it's, I've had like 5 knee surgeries, right? And I've done other things to injure myself through training, sports, whatever. So I think I don't necessarily need to be carrying around a ton of weight because that's just putting extra stress on my joints, right? I need to just be is strong and be adaptable and to be able to respond. That's what I want.
Right. I used to chase this dragon in the gym and outside. What I mean by that is I always wanted, like most people, I always wanted to be the best, the baddest, most ready, ultimate warrior, this and that. And I was killing myself for that. And at the time that was appropriate for me it was just, you have a high goal. And even if you hit below that, you still are in a good place. But after a while, it became apparent to me that I was always trying to post, when I was doing my other videos, I literally 10 or 12 years ago, I remember I could do a Turkish get up with a 106-pound kettlebell. If I can even swing that a few times, that's a good day. But I realized that there's no matter what I do, or anyone else for that matter, whatever I do, either in the privacy of my own home where no one ever will see it, or I put the best of what I've got on the internet, there's always going to be about 500,000 guys that are better, faster, stronger, better looking, and have a nicer car. So at this point now, I just go, everything is just relative to me now. It's in a way, it's a good kind of selfish in that it kind of tempers my ego. I know now I will never be the biggest. Even when I was in my 20s, I was never going to, there's tons of guys who are going to be better than me any given day, even if half asleep and with one leg gone. So I was like, why are we even, why? Yeah. Okay, so I weigh 210, I weigh 220. There's another guy that weighs 230, and then another guy weighs 270, and they all look better than me. Yeah. And they can all kick my ass. Yeah. So I just said, let's just best version of ourselves, man. That's, yeah.
For sure. Well, and one thing you'll appreciate this. So whenever I'm watching mixed martial arts, right? I love to watch UFC. And whenever I watch it, you hear guys talking, and there'll be championship fights. And this is the lightweight champion. This is the middleweight champion. This is the heavyweight champion. And they talk about how I'm the best fighter in the world. And I think you're the best fighter that we happen to know of, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Because I'm sure as you mentioned, at any given time, I don't care who it is, Francis Ngannou, is Israel Adesanya, I don't care who is holding the belt at the time. There will be somebody who we haven't heard of yet, right? Yep. There will probably be a whole bunch of somebodies that we haven't heard of that would be able to make that person look like they had just walked into the dojo, walked into the gym today. That was their first time, right? So we just don't happen to know about it. So it's like, I always kind of laugh inside when they say, and I don't want to take any shine off these people because they would all kill me, right?
Sure.
But
me too.
But I go, that statement when they say I'm the best in the world. So man, listen, you have to take, we all have to take that with a grain of salt. You're the best that we know of, but I'm sure there are lots of people who are better.
Sure. Yeah. And the grain of salt that I would take it with is, damn, if you're stepping into a ring with anybody, I hope you think I hope you believe in your heart of hearts that you are the best.
Yes.
You must believe that, because if you don't, then good luck. But in the real world that you and I live in, yeah, we all know that statistically that's probably not correct, right? Out of 6.5 billion people, it's unlikely we happen to find out of 6.5 billion truly that one outlier, right? So you know, but it's fun.
No,
it's fun. So
it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. So last question, Bill. Where can people find you?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii. My company is called Fit Pro Hawaii, FITPRO. I have to spell it because I have a list. Fit Pro Hawaii. And you can find me on Instagram at Bill Maeda, TikTok at Bill Maeda. I also have a YouTube channel. It's at Fit Pro Hawaii. And if you need to get hold of me by email, fitprohawaii@gmail.com. And I'll be doing a little TikTok video later on. I told on a previous video yesterday, I said, hey, I'm going to be taking the next few days off, but I still want to kind of stay engaged with everybody. So I said, hey, please post any questions you have to comments. And on my evening video tonight, I'll try to answer as many of them as I can in person. And I'll probably, I thank you. This was great because I was able to kind of talk about some of the topics first with you, and it's been very helpful. But so the next few days I'll just be doing like a little mini Q&A thing, and I think I'll start working out again. I'll start training again this Saturday or something, and should be ready to go.
Well, so I have to say once again, Bill, thank you very much for doing this. I am honored that you would do this with me. And although you said, like you're nobody on the internet, man, like I think that number one, your story is compelling, very interesting. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And there have been, I always, like, I'm a lifelong learner, and I always try to learn as much as I can from the people that I speak to. And there are a lot of things when I listen, when we go through and edit this, there are a lot of interesting gems that I'm going to pull out of here, because I've learned quite a bit from you. And so I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for that. I hope that this was as entertaining and educational for the audience as it has been for me. So I want to thank you very much for participating. Greatly appreciate it, brother.
Chris, hey, likewise. It was an honor and a pleasure doing this with you. This is my first podcast. I'm just blown. Thank you so much for giving me the time and giving me the opportunity to be on your show. And this was fun. I really enjoyed it. And I hope some of the information was helpful to everybody. But thank you, Chris.
Not a pleasure. Not a problem at all. And for everybody who watched and participated, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you guys for giving us the time of day and listening to two old guys talking about fitness. I hope you guys picked up something. As always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris and Bill Maeda, not your everyday ortho. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Chris.